welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I hope you guys have been enjoying getting back into the discussion episodes after all of the Crop and Click series. And we'll be rolling these out all throughout the rest of short term here on campus, or for everybody else, they'll be coming out through basically the end of May. So I hope you all can enjoy. Joining today, we have the final member of the museum staff to appear on the podcast. Yes, drum roll is good. We have Dan Mills, director of the museum. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm happy you're taking the time to get on here. I'm happy we've got you in now. So
yeah, well, thanks for the invite. Actually, I've been really enjoying the podcast, and I think it's a great addition to the educational opportunities for students, but even just the kind of interpretive way of expanding what the museum does. So thank you for your initiating and doing this.
Well, now I feel special. So great.
Oh, good.
Great. So why don't you start by just outlining, it's kind of what I ask everybody, what led you to becoming a director? What led you in this direction at all? And then specifically, how did you become director of this museum?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm an artist by training and practice. I have 2 studio art degrees, and when in school, organized shows as an undergrad, some usually things that I was in, and then ended up having an assistantship in the university galleries, where I went to graduate school and found that I really loved it and seemed pretty good at the various things that were asked of me. But the hook was getting to handle artwork and be around the artists and whatnot. It absolutely hooked me.
Hooked for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. And so there was a lag before joining academia. I actually moved into Chicago, started an art moving business, and worked for a large, really kind of amazing collection in Chicago for about 10 years before joining academia. And so I've been the director and curator of 3 different academic museums, and landed here in 2010.
Yeah, and that was Bucknell, SUNY Potsdam,
Yes.
and Bates, not in that order, I'm realizing.
Yes. Yeah, the opposite, but yes.
But yeah, so expanding on that, I'm realizing not everybody might know what a director actually does. I realize it's sort of in the name, but maybe you could expand a little bit on what is a director? What do you do?
Sure. Well, at a small museum, a director does many things and wears the many proverbial hats, which is in part why I've opted to have this be the space where I devote my career. Is I really like to both engage in lots of different aspects of museum, exhibitions, galleries. So that's a part of it, and it makes one's day kind of perpetually different and not kind of singular in focus.
Yeah.
So as a director, really my role is the obvious, to direct and lead, really sort of provide a vision and direction for the museum, and develop an exhibition program, develop collections, and staff, and work with really a great team to kind of plan and implement all the things we do.
Right. Because I know, looking at bigger museums, you get sort of increasingly subdivided within the museum staff. But in a small museum, there's a lot of work to go around in terms of different departments, and so I feel like it's much more variety in the work. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that's very true.
Yeah. So, talking about that variety, I know one of the big things that you do working here is organizing shows, organizing our rotating exhibitions. And so I kind of wanted to dig into some of those that have been in the past recently, and then some that are upcoming. I know the last set of shows that we were doing that happened in November through last March.
Basically November to March, yes.
That was Exploding Native Inevitable and Nomadic Studio Main Camp. And those were things that you co-curated with Brad Kailhammer. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what gave you the idea for that show, what that process was like. I know it's kind of a long story, but I think it's a good one. So
yeah, thank you. So Brad Kailhammer is, I think, one of our great indigenous contemporary artists working today, and he's somebody who I've known now for 24 years. And during that time, he has gone from being really an emerging artist internationally to a well-established, more senior Native American artist. And so we've kept up and really became friends and over the years. And I was in his studio doing a visit in fall of 2019, and was kind of kidding him about how he was an emerging artist when I'd met him, and now he's really a senior artist at this point, and also recognizing the fact that he is someone who has devoted a lot of time getting to know and being engaged with indigenous artists throughout the U.S. and been supportive and mentoring and partnering and showing with. And I just thought, I'm going to pitch the idea of him joining me and curating a show focusing on indigenous artists. So at the time, it's interesting is that it took us 4 years.
Right.
And back when we came up with the name, Exploding Native Inevitable, it seemed like quite a bit less attention being given to contemporary indigenous artists of the U.S. And that's changed, which is really great news.
Kind of right on that current, I guess.
Yeah, but we started planning when there seemed to be kind of a silence largely in this area. And by the time we did it, we're in the middle of this wave.
Yeah.
As we know, Jeffrey Gibson is representing the U.S. in the Venice Biennale, for example.
Right, yeah.
Among other things. In fact, we texted each other when that was announced. It was just "exploding native inevitable!" exclamation point was our comment.
Yeah.
So between 19 and when the show opened in 23, this pandemic happened, and
really,
it slowed the process down a little bit. But it also one thing that as horrible on almost every level that period was. It was a great time to do really deep and uninterrupted projects like research.
Yeah.
So Brad, obviously was quite a bit ahead of me on this, but we spent a lot of time reading and looking and listening widely and deeply at contemporary indigenous artists, whether it was film or poetry or theater and performance or visual arts. Or photography, to really have a broad understanding and foundation of what is being done out there
across all of the arts, right?
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
And then started the process of selecting artists, so that we would, hopefully be doing it from a much more informed place. And it was an amazing deep dive, really.
Yeah.
And then really the ending focus was artists who we felt were doing amazing things today. Many didn't have the exposure we thought their work merited, whether it was because they were quite young and were just emerging, or had been in it a while and work deserved more attention. And we looked to represent artists from nations and tribes across this land we call America.
Right.
And then we were successful at having it travel across this land. So
right. Where is it now, as a reminder?
It's going to open at Scottsdale Museum of Contemporary Art this fall in the Southwest, and then it's going to the Midwest to the Sheldon Museum at University of Nebraska, Lincoln. And then it's going to the Mountain Plains, to the Nora Eccles Harrison Museum at Utah State University. So leaving New England, we felt like we'd achieved that. And the artists who, for the most part, we were in direct contact with, we really worked with them. We aspired to have that happen, and there's a lot of excitement about the fact that their work will be traveling throughout the land.
Yeah, and as an addition on that, I mean, the name Exploding Native Inevitable, I mean, I've heard lots about where that comes from, but maybe you could expand on what you choose that name and what that means.
Sure. So Brad gets all the credit. It was his idea, and it really riffs on Andy Warhol and Exploding Plastic Inevitable, which was the name of events and performances that he started to organize in conjunction with exhibitions of his in the mid-'60s. And the idea of having this indigenous exhibition that we were organizing both kind of explode out culturally in being dynamic and having outreach, but also across academic disciplines and in other media.
Right. Yeah, because I think the multimedia component was a big part of the show as it stands now. I mean, there's traditional mediums that you would expect to see in a museum, but there's also a lot of video. There's the Sarah Rose structure, I guess you would call it, right? There's a lot of different kind of mediums mixed in there.
Yeah, so the show itself was very broad in terms of art disciplines, but what we hoped would happen, we were able to do, which was to partner with and have the participation of colleagues across academic disciplines organize their own events in conjunction or that we partnered with. So in addition to the, I think it was 12 artists and 2 collaboratives in the exhibition, there were programs including poets and dancers and writers and a film series, among other things.
Right, production of the Thanksgiving play too was on campus, all kinds of stuff. So it was great to see that kind of expanding across the campus, making those connections across different departments. I think is kind of cool. So.
Yeah, it was great. It was really great energy, amazing, and really kind of gratifying that there was such interest and buy-in and partnership that came out of it.
Yeah. So if you're in one of those spots that we mentioned, was it Scottsdale, and then what were the other 2 again?
The Sheldon Museum at University of Nebraska, and the Nora Eccles Harrison at Utah State University.
So if you're anywhere near those, keep an eye out. It's coming your way. Looking ahead to what's going to be coming up here, we've got 2 shows that are going to be opening at the beginning of June at the museum. Once the senior thesis show, which is up right now, is going to be closed. That's going to be Hartley Hopper, and then the Saul Steinberg show.
Yes.
So Hartley Hopper, let's start there. Obviously, Hartley, we have a lot of his stuff. We have a whole episode with Gail Scott and Bill talking about the memorial collection. What kind of drew you into looking at this show and the sort of the connection with Hopper?
Yeah, thank you. It's like many things related to exhibitions. There's sort of a multi-layered answer. So from one perspective, we have this extraordinary collection of Marston Hartley, mostly drawings, but other materials, personal effects, etc., that really distinguish the museum's collection. One of the wonderful challenges to having such work is how do you continue to make it interesting and relevant and not
make
have
it new.
Be, kind of dust off the usual suspects and reinstall them or what have you. And a few years ago, we organized a show which placed Hartley drawings next to contemporary artists whose work resonated with it. And that was a kind of wonderful way to kind of engage and keep kind of new and different perspectives at thinking about this work. For this exhibition, Hartley Hopper selections from 2 New England collections ended up reaching out with and having conversations with Chris McCarthy, the director of the Provincetown Art Association and Museum, a wonderful museum on outer Cape Cod. And about 10 years ago, I think 2013 to be precise, they received a gift and made some purchases that led to the addition of a collection of almost 100 Edward Hopper drawings, plus drawings and watercolors by Josephine Hopper, his wife, plus an archive and other materials. And
this sounds sort of familiar,
right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit like there's a parallel universe there.
Yeah.
There's this trove of really working drawings and sketches and studies for master works that PAM, as the acronym is PAAM, has of Hopper, and that we have this Hartley collection, which is similar. We have over 100 drawings plus personal effects and archives and other materials.
Yeah.
And the idea of doing a partnership and showing artists together and maybe having a different way of thinking and looking at them was intriguing, and we eventually agreed to do the show together. So it'll be here this summer and in Provincetown next summer. And in both instances, the vast majority of works are many amazing drawings in both collections.
Yeah.
They're mostly concept drawings. They're figuring it out drawings. They're studies for some of the great paintings that each of them have done. And, drawing, I think in this instance, having a show of these drawings could be really exciting for people who are interested in drawing, interested in either of the artists, or interested in the relationship of drawing to other practices. So the show will have a little over 30 drawings of each, a select number of materials from the two archives,
Right.
And then catalogs. There's so many great catalogs on both artists. We're going to display them on a table, and there are illustrations of the master works that the drawings on the walls are related to.
Gotcha.
Which we think will be really kind of a fun and exciting opportunity for visitors to engage with.
No, I love the inclusion of some of those things that are sort of that kind of work in progress drawings leading towards developing an idea. Because remember, there were some of those in that previous Hartley show, and sort of Pleasure. I'm trying to remember the artist's name now. She had those colored pencil drawings on the wall.
Yeah, so let's see. The incredibly long titled exhibition.
Yes, and so did Pleasure take the hand of sorrow, and they wandered through the land of joy.
That's correct.
I think I got that right.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about that.
So Jennifer Coates had a group of drawings that were a wonderful complement to a Hartley drawing. So for that exhibition, the artists were invited, and then were invited to select a Hartley drawing from our collection, and then write something about Hartley and their work, which was a really wonderful exhibition.
Yeah, it's great. No, I'm glad to be seeing that sort of through line getting taken over into this next show. I think that's great. The other show going up at the same time, Saul Steinberg, brilliant, witty, inventive, cerebral. Some good adjectives.
Right.
What intrigued you about Saul Steinberg? Why Steinberg?
So Steinberg is somebody whose work I've loved since I was an undergrad, maybe earlier, from looking at New Yorkers and whatnot as while growing up. Many may know his work as being frequently on the cover of the New Yorker magazine, and often inside. And during, at his peak, there were times when they actually just gave him 14 pages or more. That his work, was in the magazine.
Just taking up the whole thing at that point. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think his work is all those adjectives and more. They're incredibly inventive. They're aspects that are so childlike in curiosity, but they're so cerebral and so smart at the same time, and sometimes cutting, sometimes critical, sometimes laugh out loud funny. So we had the opportunity, actually the Saul Steinberg Foundation reached out to us with an offer of a gift of Steinberg works, and met with them, and eventually we landed on, I think, 15 works, which are in the collection now. And they range from the mid-'60s to the late '80s. Many are prints. There are some drawings. There are a range of his kind of signature subjects and ideas. There's his sort of fake cursive writing, symbols that relate to politics or authority and other things which are important to him, because he actually as somebody who we won't have time to go through his biography here, but you'll have to come see the show.
Yeah,
But
there's gonna be 3 timelines up at once, right?
Yes,
Between NSK and
that's
then
right.
these 2 shows. Yeah, so lots of reading.
Yes, and for Steinberg, he had to leave countries and documents
Yeah.
and change nationalities multiple times as a young Jewish student in anti-Semitic countries. So he moved a
Right.
bunch of times, and the importance of official documents and stamps and signatures, etc., ended up resonating in his work throughout his life as a result of this. So the exhibition, which is being organized, I'm the lead curator and assisted by Jensen Nita, one of our many wonderful interns.
Yeah.
And we've added to our works on paper a number of New Yorker covers. So we'll have a display case that will both show his work reproduces so well, and kind of expand his visual vocabulary and ideas by having another 20 or so covers on display. So I think,
Yeah.
it should be pretty interesting.
Wide
And
range.
Jensen's hard at work taking an incredibly long and complex and deep timeline
Yeah.
and working to edit it into something that's exhibition label worthy,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
i.e. much shorter.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that this came about through, people reached out to you to kind of offer the Steinbergs to the museum. When thinking of exhibitions, do most of them come from the permanent collection? Is it stuff that comes from outside the museum? How does that normally work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the museum has a collection of over 8,000 objects and some amazing works. We have very finite space. We don't have permanent collection galleries. And I think as a team, the staff has gotten really good at finding ways to both research and develop exhibitions that either are of or incorporate the collection, and also as educational experiences for interns and other students. So for Exploding Native Inevitable and Brad Kohlheimer, those were basically 2, quote, loan exhibitions,
Right.
works that were borrowed from others, mostly from the artists.
Yeah.
However, we acquired many of the works in Exploding Native Inevitable. So they are going out across this land, but they will come back here and then be available for study for, over many years.
Yeah. I know one work that we acquired from that is from Sarah Rowe. It's a image of Hyoka that is now in the collection. So you can come and see it for yourself if you want.
Yeah, so, and it gives a chance to talk about something which is exhibitions. To me, exhibitions are amazing because they provide an opportunity to both explore and then share new ideas, topics, artists, ways of working in a short-term way. So it's really about exposure, introducing these things. Adding works to a collection provides opportunities for long-term study.
Right.
So
research.
A student might come in and love an exhibition, then it's gone after that semester. They may, however, study the same artist over the course of their entire undergraduate career if it's in the collection. So Exploding Native Inevitable really resonated on campus. Acquiring works allows Bates and the museum to have a continued relationship with those artists and their work in ways that students get to benefit from.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's great. And I imagine a certain amount of balance between those two, that kind of short-term exposure and long-term study is a big part of it.
It's a great combo. And so at this moment, it's a little bit unusual as we have 3 exhibitions this summer. It will be Hartley Hopper, Saul Steinberg, and then NSK, which was curated by Samantha Sigmund. And as the NSK show is from the collection, expanded a bit with some additional materials. Hartley Hopper is half from our collection, and then Steinberg is from our collection, except for the kind of supplemental materials that were added.
Right, exactly. So there's the blend right there happening in real time. So, yeah, well, that's great. I think that you've given a good pitch for maybe why people should come and check these out. June 7th is when those new shows are going to be opening.
Yes, 7 to 9 p.m. is the opening.
Ah, good. Nice. I haven't checked the calendar in a minute. And then those are going to be running all the way through October 5th.
Yes, and the newest Slovenian Kunst show, which opened in conjunction with the thesis exhibition, we really decided that it would be great to have continue through the summer and join these other two shows, all of which will be on view into the first part of fall semester.
Yeah.
We have a way of changing shows reunion weekend in early June.
Right.
And then at the end of the summer, instead of having the exhibitions change, we change our audience.
Yeah.
Because students and the campus community return.
Yeah.
So we'll have these up until I think October 6th or 7th.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's 3 great shows. They're all going to be up at the same time. 3 for the price of none, as it is with us always. So, yeah, come and check those out. And if you want to learn more about NSK, we have an episode up that's all about what NSK is and all about that. So give that a listen. But yeah, thank you, Dan, for coming and doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. And I would give a plug to the website, which all 3 exhibitions are up under upcoming, but also a real trove of podcasts, amongst other things, are there. I was listening to some of the recent the class project. I'm forgetting the name.
Crop and Click.
Yes.
I'm tripping over the R's and L's and all that.
But there's some great things there to both hear how students are thinking about art and objects and culture, and how the museum is really being integrated into their curriculum and is a kind of a lab and research field for their studies.
Yeah. Well, if that's not a great plug to end on, I don't know what else there would be. So great. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Yeah. Take care.
You too.